What am I to do?
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandRUSSO.com.
Welcome to the He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast, where he is always annoyed and she is a bright light of joy.
I'm going to write you a script. No,
I like my intros and I like the fact that you don't like them. That's the best part for me.
If we have anybody listening, they've already like, nope.
No, if anything, they're like, tell me more. They want to hear from a bright light of joy.
Okay.
I may change my name to Joy. Our guest today, Michael, Jeff McCarthy, he took us through a journey of rebranding that I thought could almost be a textbook in terms of challenges, how they met those challenges, and really it supersedes industry and geography. It's a story of rebranding done right.
It really was. And the fact that they did it internally was impressive. I think he had some background in that, and that helped.
Yeah.
Because I was talking to him about, how badly that same experience could have gone, people not trusting you. I mean, giving you the benefit of the doubt that they can't do that. And not to mention just the end result, depending on if you have the process to really find out the right thing and not just the first thing, because the first thing is never right. I mean, it just isn't. And people are so quick to do that. Like he made the statement, there's no bad ideas. I disagree. I think there's a lot of bad ideas out there.
Yes, you make your point very clear on that regard.
Well, it's just, but that's the whole point of it, is to get through the bad ideas. You don't get to the good ones until you get through the bad ones. And the first ones are always bad. Generally that's the way. I mean, you get lucky every once in a while, but you have to get through all the expected things to get to the good stuff. And especially when it comes to renaming and the rebranding process, that kind of thing. So yeah, but I thought it was great. I think he did a great job, and it was very nice to hear his story and how it evolved and the end result.
Right.
And how well it's been doing.
When you talk about quantity and that's what leads to quality, for our listeners who maybe haven't been around since the early days of this podcast, maybe talk a little bit to Dutch and his influence and how that shapes the work.
Well, and again, I don't know if it's like that for everybody, but I know that's how I, learned to do things over time. It was, the first day of class, we walked in, it was, I need 300 logos for tomorrow kind of thing. It was like, okay, it was, stay up all night, you do it. And I thought it was just being a jerk.
Hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure. So you didn't just put in ChatGPT?
No.
Oh, this is the 1900s, right? Go ahead.
Yes, a long time ago. There were computers. We just weren't allowed to use them. We were still hand doing everything. But the whole process is that you get to the good stuff by going through the grind of it, getting rid of all the expected and getting through the initial ideas. And the good idea is always deeper, And again, I thought it was just being a hard ass, trying to teach us, a lesson. But there was a lesson there. And it was that you have to work through the process. You have to get to the good stuff. And the good stuff isn't always immediate. And I think in today's world, we all want immediate versus AI, chat, tools that just deliver things for us with templates and things like that. And those work. And those are great. They look great. They're better than I ever have. But if you really want to have that big idea, that moment, you got to go past all that.
Right. No, absolutely. So without further ado, although there's been a lot of ado, sorry about that. Y'all stick around to listen to our conversation with Jeff all about branding.
When the day is through.
Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you, because we talk to so many B2B marketers and often in the financial space, but yet it's always fascinating to me to hear how different each of you approach marketing and the different challenges that you have. So maybe we start with just a little bit of an overview of your particular job, location, size, give the people a little sample, a little taste of what you deal with on a daily basis.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm the Senior Vice President and Marketing Director at Bank 59. We are located in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. There's 5 O's in Oconomowoc, so bonus points if you can spell it. But for those of you that are not in Wisconsin, it's about halfway between Milwaukee and Madison in the southern part of the state. We are a roughly $2.5 billion asset bank with 14 branch locations. Been headquartered right here in Southeast Wisconsin since 1859, and have a commitment to volunteerism, charitable giving, and certainly all the products and services you would come to expect.
And I love that because as a community bank, you're really talking about being a part of the community. And I think that's so important. And I think you also just gave us a little bit of a sample as to why your name is what your name is.
That's absolutely correct. We actually rebranded the bank almost 6 years ago now to Bank 59. And we can certainly get into the background of that whole story. But yeah, the name Bank 59 references our founding year in 1859. We've been a locally owned independent bank that whole time, something we're really proud of and something that we think is a differentiator for us. So we really lean into that with our brand story.
When there was a big trend among middle school children a while back with the whole 6'7" thing, did you feel like they were kind of stepping on your 5'9" toes?
A little bit. We tried to do this kind of thing with it. It didn't really catch on. So we'll let the kids have their fun.
I think that's wise. I think it's very wise. So talk to me a little bit about the rebranding process. What was it like coming to the realization? I would imagine you probably knew before everybody else, selling them on it, finding a partner, doing the research, getting it done. Kind of people struggle with that. And so you having gone through it and come out the other side victorious, talk us through that.
What was the previous name though? What was the previous name before you changed it?
So the previous name was First Bank Financial Center, and that is a very clunky, cumbersome name. Center was spelled R-E at the end, so it was super fancy. But we were one of 22 First Banks in the state of Wisconsin and one of several hundred around the country. And as you think about rebranding, I think there's a few good reasons to rebrand. Either the name no longer fits who you are, or there's a trademark challenge. Somehow you look behind the times, or your name's not distinctive. And certainly that last one, not being distinctive, is where we were. I used to, introduce myself and tell people I work for First Bank Financial Center, and they say, "Oh, now which First Bank is that?" Well, that's obviously a huge challenge. Your marketing dollars just don't work very hard for you if people can't figure out who you are. So I was really excited to take on the opportunity to rebrand the organization. And originally, when our CEO came to me, he asked me to write an RFP to find an agency to help us do that. And I went back to my office, I started writing it, and really thought about it long and hard, because my background was with advertising agencies before I joined the bank. And I really love my team here. I love the work that we do. And so I went back to him and I said, "Hey, I'm happy to do this RFP for you and find an agency, but before we do that, would you let me and my team take a crack at it? And all it's going to cost you is some time. Obviously, you're already paying me, so it's not going to cost you any more money. But would you let us take a crack at it?" And he said yes. So we were off and running, and it was a big. I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to throw our own hat in the ring to do that, because it's a huge project and a huge responsibility. But I'm so glad that I did.
There's so much to tap into that question because it can go so many different ways. First of all, kudos for them for trusting you. It's really hard for, I think we're in a smaller community in South Louisiana, but Jack and I both worked in larger markets in Seattle and Los Angeles at one time. And so we had some bigger agency experience and knew kind of how the world worked. But we found over and over again in our area, geographic, not just our area, but the entire southern region, anytime a big project like that would come up, it was like, well, we have to go to Chicago, we have to go to New York, we have to go to LA, we have to go to Dallas, we have to go to a bigger market to get the talent we need to do that. And we're like, well, we're right here and we can do that. And it was so frustrating to see those things pop up and know they spent so much money on something that they could have gotten a lot more affordable, look closer to home. At the same time, I've seen it done where they trust locally and they have their sister's brother's cousin do their logo and rebranding. And it turns out like that. And it looks like that, and so there is a risk, obviously, with that. And there's people that don't value it and to put it in there. But obviously, you had the background experience to help guide that team towards, which I think is a very cool name. I mean, I would say that's a big market kind of name, very kind of slick and hip and very new, but it still has foundations in the history, which I think is brilliant. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I can walk you through kind of how we got there. But to your point, the Bank 59 name references over 160 years of history, which, again, you run the risk of being old or stodgy or that kind of thing. But the logo treatment that we chose and the bright red color we felt was very contemporary and very modern. So we really felt and still do that we struck a really nice balance there of honoring that history, but still looking like a contemporary modern bank that has everything that today's consumer needs. And my guiding light through the whole thing, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the book Purple Cow by Seth Godin, and it's one of my favorite books. And he says in that book that in a crowded marketplace, fitting in is a failure. Not standing out is the same as being invisible. And that was kind of my North Star through that whole project was, again, crowded marketplace, that's banking, right? I mean, there is no more crowded marketplace than banking. And so our whole thing through the whole project was, if we're going to do this, let's stand out, let's be unique, and let's be different. Let's do something that other people aren't doing. And we feel like we got there.
Yeah, no, we're big Seth fans. About 25 years ago, when we started our agency, Jackie gave me a book from him. Brand Gap was the first one I read.
No, that's Marty Neumeier.
Oh, Marty Neumeier. Okay.
But you're on the same page. I gave you both books at the same time. Carry on.
You did. But both of those guys kind of transformed how we thought about the branding process and having those kind of fundamental guides. I mean, nobody's reinventing the wheel here. I mean, it's all been done. So how do you find the right loss leader? I mean, I coached my son in baseball all my life. I was a horrible baseball player, but I went and learned from the greats, and I studied the right people and I repeated things very well. And so sometimes you follow those guides and then you put your own spin on things as you go. And it's not always reinventing the wheel. It's like, okay, let me go figure out what works and do the right thing.
Absolutely. Completely agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. So, walk us through the process. So you do a deep dive on the conversations with customers internally. What were some things you uncovered?
Yeah, so we explored our competitive set here in the market. We did an audit of all of our stuff and things that a rebrand would affect. We reviewed some research of our own customers, but also nationally what people were looking for from a bank. Did a deep dive into our own communities and our own bank history. Did a brand exercise with our board and with some employees, and went from there. And so the competitive set exploration that we went through, one of the first things that I did was create a board that had all of our competitor logos on it. And obviously a brand is more than a logo, but the logo certainly is front and center. And one of the things that we noticed when we put that board together was, man, there was a lot of blue and green on that board. Banks tend to lean into those two colors. So before we knew anything else, we knew we were not going to be blue or green. If part of the exercise is standing out, why would we adopt the same colors as everybody else? So we had no idea what the brand was going to be yet. We had no idea what the logos were, but we knew they weren't going to be blue or green. But then, like I said, we really dove into our own history. We did an exercise with our board and with our employees, where you guys have probably done something similar, where I put a bunch of magazines on the table, and I told everybody around the room to go through the magazines and cut out pictures and words and things that reminded them of our organization, glue them all to poster boards, and then present the boards to the group. And as they're doing that, I'm writing down all the words and phrases I'm hearing and kind of starring the ones that I hear multiple times. And as I did that, what was really clear through all of those groups was just how proud people were of our heritage. Really proud of the fact that we've been independent this whole time. We were founded before Abe Lincoln was president. So 2 years before he was president, we existed. We're older than our city, believe it or not. Survived the Depression and the World Wars and all that, and came out on the other end. And that's just not something a lot of organizations can talk about, let alone banks. So we decided we really wanted to lean into that, because it was something everybody was proud of and could get behind, but it's also something completely unique to us. It's something that we could really own. So with that in mind, we developed a list of nearly 100 names originally. Just, one of those, there's no bad ideas at this stage. Let's throw them all on the list. And from there, we kind of whittled it down to 8 of them, ran them through initial trademark searches because we wanted to make sure we could trademark whatever we landed on. That weeded out 3 or 4 of the 8. And from there, we kind of picked 3 of the remaining options and blew them out and presented them.
But I have a question, though. Did you know the whole time? Did you know inside that it was Bank 59? Was that the one?
So when we got down to that initial list of 8, it was definitely my favorite. It was. I really felt like we were onto something there. What we decided to do ultimately was present 3 options that were kind of on a spectrum. And on this side of the spectrum was something very traditional and conservative. And on this side of the spectrum was very, very contemporary and modern, kind of like we're going to plant the flag out there and try to get there. And then we had kind of this middle option of the best of both worlds. And that's where we felt Bank 59 lived. Again, honoring the heritage, but looking very contemporary and modern. And so I did my best to present everything neutrally and not to tip my hand and all that. But they asked for my recommendation at the end. It was Bank 59, and thankfully they all agreed. So that's where we landed.
Yeah, there's so much. I love the process, though, that everybody's got a different one. I think going through a process to figure things out is always good, especially involving people. So they have ownership in it and they feel like they're invested in part of that. One of the biggest problems, we do a lot of rebranding projects over the years. And I just got off the phone with a client, actually, and they were we were at the final stages of approving something and they were still hemming and hawing at the end because it was like, well, brand equity, that is the thing that comes up. It's like we have so much invested, and are we losing something? And there's a difference between, and I would call what you did, not a rebranding, more of a brand evolution, because, you really kept the soul of the name, which I think is very important. And like, again, I think that's a win, and, but, the equity, and people are really afraid of that change. Well, people forget us. Well, they stop thinking that we're not the same people. And then it becomes, how are we messaging it? How are we positioning it? And how do we let people know what's going on? Because sometimes you see the news, some big brand will change something that everybody loves, and it is total kickback. Like the what was it? The that restaurant that recently came up, the Hickory place, the old timey
Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel, yes. Cracker Barrel changed their logo, and there was such uproar over that. And again, I think more than anything, it was probably how it was positioned and how it was presented. It was just thrown on people and saying that, here, deal with it, versus something that oh God, people actually love this place, and they kind of reinstilled. So I don't know. I think in the end, it probably helped them in a way, because people were brought back to the fold and said, this is my place and I like it, because they listened and they followed the trend. But again, it's how do you roll that out? How do you position it? How do you make people love it as much as you do,
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I think part of the reason why it was a success was I was not asking anybody to do something they weren't already doing, right? Or to embrace a concept they weren't already embracing. It just wasn't part of our brand before. And when we launched it, we spent just as much time telling people what it meant for them as what it didn't mean for them. Because obviously at that time, there were a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on. And banking is very personal for people. It's just like healthcare. And you start messing with something that personal, and people get upset and they get nervous. And so part of our whole launch strategy was, again, spending as much time telling people, employees, shareholders, customers, all alike, this is what it doesn't mean for you. We're not closing branches. We were not sold. The executive team isn't leaving. And basically, if you like what we're all about, you should be excited about this, because we're doing this in order to survive and be strong moving forward. We were being watered down before. We were being lost. Now we're going to stand out and be even more successful than we were. So if you like all of this, which in theory you do because you work here or you're a customer, you should be excited, because nothing that you like is changing. We're just leaning into it even more. And when we sent out the initial email to 25,000 email addresses of our customers, we got 5 negative emails back. That was it. And one was from a retired marketing professor who told us we were crazy for using red.
Well, it's textbook, it's textbook, right? You use blue and green. That's what you do in financials, makes you feel warm and fuzzy, makes you think of money. Like Jackie always says, nobody likes to be told they have an ugly baby, but everybody likes to be told how much potential they have, or how great they are, or they're so affable, they're so whatever. You like hearing the attributes, but you don't like to hear, I don't like the baby's name, or I don't like the whatever. And so there's a lot of personal ties to all that, and people get emotional.
Yeah, and our branch teams really embraced it too, because when we launched it, people would come into their branches and say, "Oh, why are you Bank 59?" Well, now you've just given me permission to tell you our story. right? Which again, when you walk into our branches, we've got timelines and history walls and things in our branches to help tell that story. So the branch teams are like, well, let me show you. And they walk you right over to that and tell you our whole brand story, which is really unique. So that name change gave them permission to talk about us because people were asking those questions. And so it was a win on a lot of levels for us.
One of the things that I think y'all did so right, and you've kind of touched on it throughout the process, was you took that input. And I think sometimes whether the marketing leader is so sure of what they want or so unsure and worried people will look upon them badly for that, they don't want to get the information from others. That input scares them. The second thing I think you did really well is not that you care. I mean, obviously it's turned out to be a great success. You don't need our grade for your effort, but for the people listening, I want to highlight these things because I want them to know why when they embark on the same journey, they need to make sure they have these steps along the way. And so you got the input. You also did it in a fun way. You didn't send a boring survey. You let people cut out magazines and put things up on a wall and create mood boards. That makes it fun and it makes them feel invested in the outcome. Only one name, one logo is going to win. Yep. When, last one standing. And so when Michael and I work with our clients at the agency, we talk about how important it is to get input, even if their choice isn't the winner. They know that they led to the win. And so they feel vested in the winner. And your 5 negatives out of 25,000 emails says you did a really good job of making the people who care feel involved.
Yeah. Well, and there was a big risk too of having my internal team do this. Nobody else on my team internally has an agency background.
Right.
So the risk is you go through all this work and they don't pick any of it. Right. And it's like, okay, now go hire an agency anyways. And that can be really deflating. And so what I said to my team, I presented to the board as a pitch, as I would have with an agency. And I said to my team, when we went into it, I said, okay, guys, my goal for all of this obviously is to have them pick one. But if they don't, I want the board to walk away and say, guys, that's really, really smart. I understand how you got there. At the end of the day, colors are subjective, logos are subjective, names are subjective. If they don't like any of those, there's nothing we can really do about that. But the win is they look at us and say, guys, I get it. I understand how you got there. And these all make sense based on what you heard. And from there, if they don't pick one of the concepts, okay. But I was really trying to manage their expectations as a team as to what to expect when we went into something like that. Because we did put a lot of work into it. And it can be very crushing at the end if they don't pick your baby, right? Like your baby wasn't pretty enough for them.
That's so hurtful.
It is hurtful because it's, as you guys know, I mean, logo development, copyright, all that, it's very personal, right? It's a piece of art. It's something that we've created ourselves. And so it almost feels like they're rejecting you if they reject the work. And so it was a risk for me to put my team in that very vulnerable position. And I really wanted to manage their expectations going into it and coming out of it. And again, fortunately, they picked one of the concepts, but it was a risk for me as a manager of our team.
Yeah, I think too, like in the risk of like going outside too. Sometimes you end up. I think we do very well. We do work all over the country, and like we were just in Springfield, Missouri, working for a company there, but we try to immerse ourselves in the culture there. We really do our due process and understanding the ground level feelings and thoughts and all that stuff, and put ourselves in that place. So we're not coming from our perspective alone and saying, "Hey, this is what we think you should do." That's never going to work. And a lot of times I see that with, we'll come in and we'll see somebody's taking over a company or an agent. As an agency, we'll take over, the branding or marketing for somebody, and we'll get their brand guidelines. And I know they spent like they probably sold their first child to go with these people. And it was probably a very lengthy process, and they did all these things. I'm looking through it and they have things and it's just this really simple thing that they did. It looks kind of like everybody else. And I'm like, okay, this was kind of like their thing. They were like, here, this is, we think it's good. So you think it's good. But the reality is, like in their brand guidelines, they'll have things like their spirit animal, I'm like, what is that? Like like there's stuff that's not real. It's not, and I love brand guidelines. I think they're very important from a messaging standpoint, not just identity, and keeping everybody on the same page. But sometimes you get all these theoretical school textbook kind of philosophical type of approaches to things. And who uses that? Who reads it? Who cares a lot?
Oh,
And
now
so
come
you
on,
end up,
Michael. You know that if I ask him right now, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? We would know all the answers to all the questions.
Exactly. I'm not going to ask that question.
No.
He might have it in there. And sometimes that could be an interesting question. But again, at the end of the day, fundamentally, what is it? And how do you, and like you, so far you've had all the answers to everything that we've asked. And I think you guys know who you are and you did the process to get there. And that's where the work comes in. Coming up with the idea at the end of the day is, I wouldn't say the easy part, but it's, once you have all the information, it kind of points you in that direction. It says, the answers are going to be there. It's going to be revealed, but you got to go through the process. You got to do your due diligence,
Right. And then that's what's nice about Bank 59 is not only is it uniquely us, it is who we are, but nobody else is ever going to be a Bank 59. I mean, one, because I trademarked it, but two, it doesn't mean anything to anybody else. And you see banks and, certainly companies in any industry, when they go through a rebrand and they come up with this made up word thing, right? And it's like, well, that could be any company anywhere. It doesn't, to your point, it doesn't mean anything to them. It's not really who they are at their core. It's just a different word that somebody made up. And sure, you can lean into that and you can own it and all that, but ours just works better because it literally is who we are. It is our brand story. And so everybody really has rallied around it. And it just means more to us.
It just means more. I have a quick question. Part of your process.
That's from a Big Ten area, by the way. You can't.
I know. That's why I made fun of the SEC when I said it. It just means more. I'm a Sunbelt fan. And so as the mid-majors, we like making fun of all of y'all up there in the higher levels, up in the clouds. But I especially like making fun of the SEC because there's a purple and gold team just down the road who had a subpar football season, now having a subpar baseball season. They're embarrassed by their basketball season, and I get joy from all of that. So here we go.
Well, I'm a big Notre Dame football fan, and so we did not miss Brian Kelly when you guys all took
No,
him.
not you guys. Those guys.
Well,
those guys.
Yes. When they took him, and it went above as well as we all thought it would. So
luckily for both of us, it worked out just as well as we hoped.
Well, I'm actually a big Notre Dame fan too, just growing up and just their history and everything. We got to go to Indiana a year ago, and we got to go to the stadium and stand out in front of it. We didn't get to go inside or anything, but I tell you what, being there was special. It was just walking on that campus and
touchdown, Jesus.
Yeah,
all of that. Yeah, no, it's a special place, and so I'm on board with that definitely.
Well, I'm very excited. This fall, Notre Dame's actually playing Wisconsin at Lambeau Field. So you take the iconic NFL franchise, the iconic college franchise, whoop up on Wisconsin, most likely. That'll be a fun afternoon.
That's a win-win all the way around.
You said you're by Madison, right? So that's the Cyclones, right?
No, Madison's the Badgers.
The Badgers. I'm sorry, Badgers.
And the Cyclones?
Iowa State.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Iowa State. My bad. Yes. Yes, yep. The Badgers. Okay.
For those of us in the South, all that Midwest stuff kind of blends together.
Right. I know. It's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
So I actually had a real question that I am now going to circle back to. One of the things that I think really slows a company down during a massive rebrand, like what you went through, is cost. For eliminating all the things we used to have. There's a big sign somewhere, there's granite somewhere, there's nameplates somewhere. And so how did you tackle the objections if they came when people started voicing concerns about cost in terms of replacing all these old things? And did you get to pull a ta-da where everything got changed at the same time, or did you have to do it over time?
So we did do the ta-da.
I love the ta-da.
Over at one time.
Or the Band-Aid pull. We call it the Band-Aid rip.
Well, so what's unique about that is our official launch date was May 4th, 2020.
Okay.
Now there was a little thing called a pandemic going on.
I was trying to think, is there
time.
anything else going on in 2020?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what was nice for me in that regard was all of our branches were closed. I mean, our drive-throughs were open, but our lobbies were closed. So as we were going through and redoing the branch spaces, there was nobody in there. So we got to actually take a little bit of time and do it. It didn't all have to be done overnight because there was nobody in the spaces. So as we led up, so we announced it to our employees in January of 2020. And we have a big annual all-employee meeting, and that's where we announced it. But prior to that, there was a small group of probably 20 of us that knew it was coming. So the people that were in charge of ordering all the paper stuff knew it was coming and stopped ordering so much paper stuff. So we didn't have to throw it all away, when the time came. Certainly we are in charge of the website. So we were working behind the scenes on the website and making that. And all these external firms that we were working with obviously signed NDAs and all that. But we had, the sign company working on it and all that. So the people that really needed to know from that perspective knew, but it was a very, very tight-knit group. Announced it in January at the all-employee meeting. And what was funny was we had this big launch video and it was loud music and it was exciting and this big unveil and whatever, and it ended and you could have heard a pin drop in that room because people get nervous, right? It's like, wow, this is a big change for us. What does this mean for me?
Right.
And it took people a little while to kind of settle down and be like, okay, this is good news, right? Because we did spend time, again, just like to our customers, we spent a lot of time with our own employees explaining to them what it meant. And by the time May rolled around, everybody was really, really excited about it. But part of what we also did for our employees was we gave every employee talking points, again, about what the change meant and what it didn't mean. Because my concern was if somebody out in the public, a customer or not, asked the call center what was going on and then walked into the branch and asked what was going on and then ran into me and asked what was going on, and they get 3 different answers, now people start to question what's really going on over at that bank. So we wanted to make sure everybody had the same answers to all the key questions, so we were all speaking the same language. And I think that really went into the success of the launch as well, was people really could trust and believe what we were telling them. But no, it was a Band-Aid. It was, as of May 4th, all the paper stuff has to go. If you have any First Bank Financial Center clothing, you have to get rid of it. You cannot wear it anymore. All the stuff in the closets, everything has to go. You've got piggy banks on it. You cannot give it to customers. Like, no, it's gone. I actually walked into one of our branches later that year, and our branch manager had on a First Bank golf shirt with his Bank 59 name tag over the logo. And I'm like, you can't wear that anymore. So, but I really like this shirt. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I will get you a different shirt, but you stop. You cannot wear this anymore.
Right.
So it was interesting going through all of our branches and offices and finding things and getting rid of them. Just people don't like waste, and I get it. But you can't have that old brand continue to bleed. You have to just make it go.
Brand launches are incredibly exciting, and I love when they happen that way because it's such a big thing. They're also terrifying, not knowing, okay, did we think of this? Did we think of that? Oh, we forgot to Google my page, or forgot to this, or forgot to something that was left off the table and it's still out there. And it just makes it all kind of, if you're involved in it and you're in charge of it, it's like a thorn in your side. Like, oh man, I forgot that moment, that thing,
Yep.
But no, when it rolls out though, it's like, birth of a baby, you get to enjoy that moment of everybody experiencing it for the first time,
Yeah. Well, and I was very fortunate. I had a very gifted graphic designer on my staff at the time who did all the logo work. And after it went up on our building here, I took her outside and I said, look at that. I said, every time we drive by one of these buildings now, like, that is us. That is our work right there. And it's something to be really proud of, right? Like, how many people, I mean, I came up with the name of the shower one morning. I don't know how, it just came to me. And I'm like, that's my name. That's your logo. And it is forever going to be on that building now. And it was a dream project, kind of a once in a lifetime project as a marketing guy. I couldn't be more proud of how it turned out. And it's still exciting to see our work on buildings and at the state fair and everything else that we do. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm still heartbroken. We did a rebranding of a bank, a huge bank down in New Orleans.
Wait, to be clear, the name of the bank, First Bank. Carry on.
It was.
Of course it was.
First Bank and Trust, yes. But they had bought up like all these banks in Mississippi, and they were all over the place. Anyway, we did a full brand architecture rebrand for them and cleaned up all their identities, all this stuff. And one of the tallest buildings in downtown New Orleans, they put their logo up on top. It was one that we designed, and it was just so cool. It was like, it was giant. It was just the whole process. They had helicopters and the whole thing. And this past year, they sold or changed name, or something happened with them, but they took the sign down, and it was up there. It was like a status symbol. Every time we went to New Orleans, you could see it from anywhere, and it's gone now. And it's still one of those things. Like, it's sad. Makes me sad.
Because it's very personal, right? It's your baby, and to see them take your baby down, that stinks.
And Jackie, I don't know if you were aware, but we were talking to the 2025 Citizen of the Year.
Jeff McCarthy, you're the 2025 Citizen of the Year?
I mean, he also has 2023 CMO of the Year, but Citizen of the Year just sounds more impressive.
So I will give my company a lot of credit for that. Part of our brand here, beyond the name and all that, we also rewrote our mission statement, and we got it down to 3 words. And the mission statement is "Make lives better." That's it. And you work with banks, and a lot of their mission statements are, "We provide high quality products and services to benefit our communities and return profit to our shareholders," and blah 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 blah. And nobody can recite it, nobody remembers it, and it's generic. And so we rewrote it to make lives better. And it's something that this entire organization has rallied around. And aside from the name and logo helping us differentiate ourselves, that mission has really helped us differentiate ourselves, because at the end of the day, we all sell the same products and services. Checking accounts are checking accounts. So how can we really stand out in the communities we serve? And Make Lives Better is just that. And so my company allows me the time to do a lot of volunteer work outside of these 4 walls. And one of them was working with our local Chamber of Commerce to completely revamp that organization, what they offer and how they present themselves. And it was kind of a second job for 3 years or so. I'm still heavily involved with them, but not as president anymore. But they recognize me with Citizen of the Year as a result of all the volunteer work that I do. And
that's awesome.
It was a very awesome honor. It was not something I was expecting. But again, as part of my speech when I accepted the award, I really did give credit to this organization, because if they didn't allow us the time to go out and do all of that and to really live our mission, I wouldn't be able to spend that much time helping those organizations. And but it shows that for us, the mission statement is not just words on a wall, right? It really is who we're all about. And it's not just about making lives better for our customers, but it's for our communities and also for our employees, making sure that they love working here and feel valued and have good work-life balance. And we're able to achieve that. So in so many ways, I feel very fortunate to work here.
Awesome.
Definitely. And I love that, by the way, just the mission statement thing. First of all, I hate mission statements. I don't like the word. I think we don't use it. It's just not something, because it's so corporate jargon. It's like you said, it's usually, this ridiculous thing that nobody memorizes or knows, but Make Lives Better. That's beautiful. And we call that the brand promise. It's like that. At the end of the day, that's the fundamental core of your brand. I mean, it's not financial. It's just, we make your lives better. I mean, that is right. Great. That is great brand promise. We just worked with a bank in East Texas, and they and Jackie actually came up with this. So I'll give her credit, but it was and we ended up kind of, their brand promise of that is your sweet spot of banking, because they're not too big, they're not too small, they're just right. They're in the sweet spot. And so that became, and this is a whole old 120-year-old bank that's been through a bunch of evolutions. And the fact that I was so proud of them for getting on board with that. And it's been gangbusters for them. It totally separates from the marketplace. It's something everybody can say. It's something internally they can wrap their head around. Other people outside can relate to it. And it's not a kudos for us moment. It's mainly, and again, understanding them, understanding who they were, and for them taking the shot on that, because they didn't have to. They could have been much more traditional. And not like that's like groundbreaking or very, modern-esque, but it is for an older bank that's community-centric, to be able to take a leap of faith in that. And they did, and it's working out for them. So it's like the lesson there is sometimes you have to, change the conversation a little bit and do something a little different to stand out and bang the gong,
Right. It's about differentiation, right? Just like the logo is and the colors are, right? That's another opportunity to differentiate yourself. And as we were going through that process, people were talking about our accounts and all that. And I'm like, no, that's what we do. That's not why we're here, right? Like all of the accounts and things that we offer, that's a means to an end. A mortgage is a means to an end, hopefully to get your family into the home that you dream of, right? The savings plans are not about saving the money. It's about achieving that goal that you have out there somewhere. Being a top workplace is not about the paycheck. I mean, part of it is, but it's also about that work-life balance and feeling appreciated and being able to contribute. And at the end of the day, all of that is about making these people's lives better. That's why we're here. And so let's lean into that. And certainly our charitable giving program and our volunteerism, all that certainly, ladders into that as well. It's kind of the proof behind the statement that when we say that's our mission here, people say, yep, I get it. I see it, right? It is who we are. It's not just words on a wall. So that's been really effective in helping us differentiate ourselves as well.
It becomes a cause everyone can coalesce around. And so when you have something that everybody feels deeply about and they can all say, yes, that represents who I am and I represent that. Well, now we're transcending an interest rate and a checking account. And Absolutely. I think that's important.
Absolutely. And our employees have rallied around it. It's so funny, like between the name change and Make Lives Better, when we were First Bank Financial Center, you never saw people wearing logo wear. Like people just didn't want it. We couldn't give it away. And now you walk around this building and everybody's in a Bank 5-9 something because they're proud to work here, right? I mean, certainly the logo is cooler than the old one was. So there's something to be said for that too. They just like how it looks. But people are really proud to work here. And I can't tell you, one, how many people leave and then come back because the grass isn't greener on the other side somewhere. And how many people have been here forever? One of the women on my team just celebrated her 20th anniversary. I've been here almost 13 years. Another woman on my team has been here 12 years. So 3 of the 4 of us have been together for a dozen years. And that just doesn't happen everywhere. And certainly it doesn't happen if you don't feel like your life is being made better by where you work. Right. So again, it's much like the name change. We weren't asking people to embrace something we weren't already. Make Lives Better is the same way, right? Like we unveiled that. Everybody's like, yeah, that is what we do. That is why we're here. And people adopted it, almost immediately. And you walk around this building and ask people, what's your mission? They'll tell you because it's 3 words and it is right. Who we are.
Can we switch gears real quick and just talk a little bit about your Wisconsin State Fair partnership?
Absolutely. So that was a little bit of luck. In 2019, well, let me back up. So one of my clients at my last agency job before I joined this bank was a banker at another local bank, and they were a major sponsor of the State Fair. And that bank got bought out and became another organization, and that gentleman moved on to other things, but he was still involved with the State Fair. And he called me one day and he said, I understand that Bank X is walking away from the State Fair. You should really look at it. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So it was that personal connection that originally connected me with the State Fair. And the opportunity was to sponsor their amphitheater stage, which is their largest free stage on the grounds. And what they did not know at the time, but I did, was this rebrand was coming. And it was a significant investment, but I went to our CEO and CFO and said, guys, we're going to launch this brand and we need a way to blast it out to the market. I cannot think of a better way than the State Fair opportunity. And for us, the State Fair grounds in Wisconsin is right outside Milwaukee. So it's in our footprint. It's here in Southeast Wisconsin. I said, guys, they are going to deliver millions of name and logo impressions for us if we do this. And what better way to announce this brand change than to partner with somebody like the State Fair? And additionally, the State Fair here has been around longer than us. They're one of the few organizations older than us. And they're just a very family-friendly organization. They support local businesses. So their brand is very, aligns very well with ours. So we signed on with the idea that we were going to use this to help launch our brand. When we let them in on the secret, they were excited because they were like, boy, the Bank 59 amphitheater sounds much better than the First Bank Financial Center amphitheater. and we agreed. And so we really used it as our megaphone to launch the brand. Now, unfortunately, again, 2020, there was no State Fair. So what they did do, they pivoted and they did some drive-through things and some virtual things and that kind of thing. They did the best they could. And we certainly worked with them on all of that. But then 2021 was the first big fair that had our name on it. And it's been a huge success, so much so that last year they came to us and said, well, now our main stage sponsorship is open. Would you want to look at that? And I said, yes. And as I was evaluating it, I realized that the opportunity was really much different than the stage we were already on. The amphitheater stage we already are on is, again, the large free stage on the ground. It's all about signage and free entertainment and family friendly and that kind of thing. The main stage is a ticketed stage where all the headliners are. So they do a ton of advertising for those shows because they have to sell tickets for it. Two completely separate programs. And so I said to them, would it be confusing for your fairgoers if I did both? And they're like, heck no, let's do it. We'll take your money and do both. And so we did. And they are now generating over 150 million name and logo impressions for us every single year. Because it's not just the 11 days of the fair. There's programming all year long. They have a giant marquee sign right on I-94 where all the commuter traffic in and out of Milwaukee goes. And we've got logos up on that. Every time there's an ad for one of their shows, our logo is on it. And so it has really helped us raise our visibility in this market. And again, you can't drive by State Fair and not notice the big red logo of ours. The tan and burgundy logo we used to be would probably be background noise, but that red logo really stands out. So was very, very fortunate through those personal relationships to be able to work with them and, again, really use them as kind of our megaphone to shout our name and logo and really help increase our visibility.
I love that. I really do love that. How do you track? I mean, obviously, calculating impressions and brand awareness is one thing, but have you put any mechanisms in place to track actual return on that investment in terms of driving new account holders or growth?
Sure. So I don't have necessarily any specific metrics. I'm very fortunate to work for an organization that appreciates branding and understands branding. So my metrics are a little softer. What I can say is that I get feedback constantly about, boy, I see you guys everywhere. Right. We're a 14 branch bank here in Southeast Wisconsin. We're not anywhere near the biggest financial organization in this area, but people say they see me all the time. I still get people say, wow, I just saw your new branch up in Mequon. Well, we haven't opened a branch in 10 years. The buildings have always been there. They just never noticed them before.
Right.
So I get that feedback. And then, one of the best things I can talk about is when I joined this bank 13 years ago, we were a $600 million organization. We're $2.5 billion today. Now, I'd like to say it's all about the marketing.
I will give you all the credit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so what I would say is, again, in financial services, it's not like you run an ad for a loaf of bread and people show up and buy bread, right? People have a much longer sales cycle. It's very personal. They think about it. And usually it takes some major issue somewhere to get them to switch. So I always say my job is to make sure that I am in their consideration set when that time happens. They've seen us, they know us, they like what they've heard from us all along. So when that need arises, we're part of who they consider. And I think just our asset size growth alone would indicate that we have achieved that goal. People are seeing us, they're recognizing us, they're responding, and we're growing accordingly. So I certainly don't, say, okay, we ran this with the state fair and it generated XYZ, because it's a long play for us. It's not as simple as running an ad and getting an immediate return. It's all about building that brand, and it's worked. And every time somebody says, wow, I see you everywhere, I'm like, yes, that's a win.
That is exactly it. And that's the goal, because to stay top of mind awareness like that means that you are getting the opportunity to really expand what you're doing, make an impression enough that they're saying something about it. And the growth is the ultimate goal. It's not website views or social media clicks. It's deposits.
Right.
It's loans.
Well, even like on social media, I mean, so we manage all of our social media in-house. And from day one, our goal has never been about followers. Like, followers are easy, right? We measure ourselves by engagements.
Right.
How many people are interacting with our posts, sharing our posts, that kind of thing. And we track that every month. And our engagement level is consistently top of market, way above, people that have 10 times the number of followers we have, because people do like our brand. They like our story. They like what we're talking about. And to get people to engage with a bank on social media isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. And so we're really proud that people have responded well to what we talk about and how we position ourselves.
Right. I am always shocked when I look up and realize it's almost been an hour. Where does the time go? How does it fly so fast? Jeff, this is what I was hoping for. This was the conversation, because for people to understand the complexities and benefits of going through the rebranding process, to hear from an insider who really lived it. Thank you for being so forthcoming and so willing to share.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Like I said, it was the project of a lifetime, and the fact that it's turned out so well for us, I'm always happy to share our story, and hopefully somebody get something out of it.
Yeah. No, I think they will. I think you've done a very nice job of making it not feel too scary or too hard, and to clearly explain the benefits, because, being better isn't enough. You've got to be different in your messaging. And I think that starts with name and logo and colors and the things that get people's attention. And you've illustrated that point to a great example.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And for everybody listening, we appreciate your time, and we'll see you again next week.
When the day is